You've probably heard this story. 43 students, Mexico, 2014, cartel violence, case closed, more or less. That's what the Mexican government wanted you to believe. They gave it a name. They called it La Verdad Histórica, the historical truth, official, final, done. The students were handed to a cartel. The cartel killed them. The cartel burned them at a garbage dump in Cocula. There was just one problem. Independent forensic experts proved it was physically impossible to burn 43 bodies at that location, the temperatures required. The timeline, the evidence, none of it added up. So if the official truth was a lie, what actually happened that night? The Ayotzinapa Rural Teachers College sits in the mountains of Guerrero, one of the poorest states in Mexico. It's not just a school, it's a tradition. Generations of young men from working-class families come here to become teachers in communities that have almost nothing. On September 26, 2014, a group of students commandeered several buses, a common practice for student activists traveling to demonstrations, to make the journey to Mexico City to commemorate the anniversary of the 1968 Tlatelolco massacre. When the Mexican government opened fire on student protesters, 43 of them never arrived. Their names were Alexander, Benjamin, Caesar, Christian, Emiliano, 43 names. 43 families who have spent 11 years demanding an answer to one question: what happened to our sons? What happened in Iguala that night involves police, military, a drug cartel, and a secret that officials buried for years. As the buses moved through town, local police intercepted them. Officers opened fire. 6 people were killed at the scene. Dozens were wounded, and 43 students, pulled from the buses, handcuffed, loaded into vehicles, were taken away. Here is something that has never been fully explained. That night, one of those buses passed through 16 federal security checkpoints, 16, and was not stopped once, despite intercepted communications that evening discussing merchandise on board. The Truth Commission later concluded the merchandise is either drugs or money. Because one of those buses wasn't just any bus. In 2016, independent investigators made a discovery that reframed everything. One of the buses the students commandeered that night was operating as part of a heroin trafficking route. Guerrero Mountains to Chicago, the bus was loaded with product. And the students, without knowing it, had hijacked a drug shipment. That is the hypothesis investigators now believe triggered what followed. Not random cartel violence, not mistaken identity alone. Violence, not mistaken identity alone. The students had accidentally seized something that powerful people needed back. And there were people watching who could have intervened. This is the detail that changes everything. Among the 43 students taken that night, one was not a student. He was a soldier, an undercover operative, embedded inside the Ayotzinapa College. His mission was to monitor student activist activity, the kind of surveillance the Mexican military ran routinely against left-wing organizers. The army knew he was there. The army knew the students had been taken. The army was monitoring communications in real time, and the army did nothing. The army was responsible at least for not stopping the abductions, because a soldier had infiltrated the student group, and the army knew what was happening at the time. Alejandro Encinas, Presidential Truth Commission, August 2022. Not intervening isn't incompetence when you have an operative on the ground, live communications, and do nothing. That's a choice. In November 2014, less than 2 months after the disappearances, Attorney General Jesus Murillo Caram stood in front of cameras and announced the case was solved. The Guerrero's Unidos cartel had killed the students and burned their bodies at a garbage dump in Cocula. That was the official story, the historical truth. Then, at the end of a 90-minute press conference, he turned to the cameras and said, and this is a real quote, "Yummy cans, Jesus Murillo Caram, November 7, 2014. I'm tired of this, the Attorney General of Mexico." Addressing the families of 43 missing students, tired of being asked questions. Within days, that phrase became a protest chant in the streets. Yummy cans, I'm tired of this, written on signs, painted on walls. The government had accidentally given a movement its slogan. The independent investigation dismantled the official story piece by piece. Argentine forensic experts brought in to analyze the Cocula dump site found the evidence of mass burning, simply did not exist. The temperatures, the timeline, the physical remains. It could not have happened the way the government said. The historical truth was a constructed narrative, and enough people now knew it. In 2018, a new Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, created a Presidential Truth Commission. For the first time, families were given access to the military base in Iguala that they had been demanding to search for years. What the commission found confirmed what families had always believed. In August 2022, the commission declared Ayotzinapa a crime of the state involving officials from local, state, and federal levels of government. Obvious collusion existed between agents of the Mexican state with the criminal group Guerreros Unidos that tolerated, allowed, and participated in events of violence and disappearance of the students, as well as the government's attempt to hide the truth. Presidential Truth Commission Final Report, 2022. Then came the revelation that hadn't been in the original report. 1 week after the commission's initial findings, Encinas returned to cameras with something he had left out. 6 of the 43 students had not been killed that night. Allegedly, the 6 students were alive for as many as 4 days after the events and were killed and disappeared on orders of the Colonel, Alejandro Encinas, August 27, 2022. 6 students held in a warehouse, alive, for 4 days, and then killed on the orders of a colonel. Los Levaron Vivos, Los Queremos Vivos, families of Ayotzinapa, repeated for 11 years. They took them alive. We want them back alive. It has been 11 years. Of the 43 students, the remains of only 3 have been identified. 40 remain missing, their fate officially acknowledged, their bodies still unfound. In 2023, independent experts filed their 6th and final report, concluding the Mexican military had actively withheld information and evidence, making the disappearance a state crime with military complicity. The Army's response: it claimed the key intelligence files, minus 853 documents collected by its own Regional Intelligence Fusion Center on the night of September 26, 2014, did not exist. Said, hand them over. As of today, those files have not been fully released. No senior military. In February 2026, a federal judge ordered the Mexican military to hand them over. The military said, the files don't exist. A court official has been convicted. No political official of significant rank has been charged. The colonel named in the warehouse allegation, Jose Rodriguez Perez, was arrested, but proceedings have moved slowly through a military justice system that families have consistently said cannot investigate itself. 11 years, a crime of the state, 0 meaningful convictions. This is the 6th case we've covered in this series. A girl in Turkey, a woman in Colombia, 43 students in Mexico. Across 6 countries, across 6 decades, a single pattern keeps appearing. The evidence existed, the names were known. The institutions responsible were identifiable. And in every case, someone, somewhere, decided that accountability was less important than protecting the system. What it actually takes, we've learned, is almost always the same thing. Families who refuse to stop asking, experts willing to say what the evidence says, and enough public attention that silence becomes harder to maintain than truth. The 43 students from Ayotzinapa are still officially disappeared. Their families are still asking. The question this series has asked, from the beginning, is a simple one. What does it take for the powerful to be held accountable? After 6 cases, we still don't have a clean answer. But we have the evidence, and now, so do you.